Hey, good morning and welcome back. This is Summer from Daughters of Justice UK. Just logged back in to do my next video log, which I believe will be video log 7. I just want to say a good morning to you all, and I hope you all have an amazing day. And I just really want to have a quick shout out to my friend Eloise, if you don't mind. Not feeling on top of the world right now, and I just want to say to her, you know, you're a beautiful soul, you've got a beautiful voice. Pick yourself up and believe in yourself, because you're worth so much more. You're a beautiful girl. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, one other thing. I've really had an exciting few days, to be honest with you, and I've been very privileged to meet some very talented people, and I'd feel it'd be wrong to, and this is not a paid advertisement in any way, shape or form. These are people that I cross paths with, so I just wanted to shout out to Badness. Some amazing music. He's an amazing talented artist, known all over the world. This is one of his older CDs. He's got a new song coming out on Sunday. Yeah, I heard him yesterday and he spit some tunes, and I tell you what, he was amazing. So yeah, anyway, back to it. Just a quick recap of where we got to last week. I was briefly explaining about where I'd got to in my previous marriage. I think I was still around the age of late teens, 18, 19, you know, and I think I was talking about where I'd got to at that part of my life. I'd recently rented a house with my ex-husband, 3-bedroom house, I may add. It was very expensive, and even though we both were working and we both had a good wage, it was still really, really expensive. So the sensible option at that time would have been to get a lodger, which is what we did. Didn't quite work out as well as we expected, but you know, it never does. You're young, and you're young and dumb and all the rest of it. But it was a lovely house. I have some very, very fond memories of that house. We had it for a couple of years. The guy that we had lodging with us, he was Portuguese, and he was a friend of the family, so you know, a friend of a friend, if you like. And he lived with us for a while. We had a cat, Custard her name was. She was an absolutely one hell of a crazy cat. As far as cats goes, she was crazy. But anyway, back to the story at hand. Yeah, and I remember living in that house, and it was very much a party house. And when I say a party house, I don't mean like, you know, back in the days where you had the late night shebeens. You know, it wasn't a party house like that. It was just us who resided in the house. We'd have a couple of mates over, you know, we'd all be drinking, we'd all be having a smoke, and it would just be chilled out. I wasn't the kind of person that was out on the streets all the time causing grief to innocent people. I wasn't that kind of person, just because I smoked cannabis. And I think this is where you get like the stigma and that attached. You know, hundreds of thousands of people smoked cannabis. It was considered the norm, you know, as opposed to like cocaine. Cannabis was a low level, and it really was just a case of cannabis and alcohol. But you know, I discovered, for me, and I don't know if it was because of like my mental health issues that I wasn't aware of at the time, I think a lot of it was just trying to drown out my sorrows and my pain. You know, I didn't know where to put that stuff. You know, I had discussed that situation with my husband, you know, at the time, which was extremely difficult. I didn't know what impact it would have on him, or how he would feel about me, for that matter. And I did later find out, many years later, that the pivotal point in our relationship, when, you know, things did eventually go bad, I was made quite aware that, you know, and through nobody else's fault, it went downhill from the moment that I opened up and talked about what I'd gone through. So, I mean, I was never treated badly by my ex-husband, don't get me wrong, but it put that label over me, you know, damaged goods, dirty, and I'm sure he didn't mean it at the time, but I felt very judged. I felt very shameful. I mean, I do remember it very clearly because I didn't know where to look. I mean, he, you know, I'm not saying negative things about him because he's not here to defend himself, and that would be wrong. And I have no reason to, because, you know, he gave me 3 beautiful children. So I'll never ever, you know, I'll never have a grudge to hold, because those are gifts that keep giving, you know. But it obviously had a major impact on him as well. Yeah, and it's really anybody that I did try to tell, like, my story of what happened to me back then, because sometimes I was a drunken idiot and it would come out, you know, and things like that do when you're drunk. But it was always so hard for people to digest and swallow, you know. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I mean, I didn't go into, it's silly, but I didn't go into, you know, exact details as such, because I'm tied round the arms because of the law at the moment, because my case is life, like I've said, you know, several times before. But yeah, it's just, when I was discussing it yesterday, for example, you know, I was discussing it with people that are from the real world, that, you know, wanted to actually listen, and that you don't find, that you really don't find. I've never ever found where I've been and spoken to somebody openly about what I'm going through, and for them to respond in such a positive way, you know. Yesterday, for example, and it made me realise, and it's quite pertinent, and it's probably why I've made this film today, but, you know, I was being told how amazing I am, the strength I have, you know, the fight in me, you know, and they could see that fight in me, and to hear that, and to hear that you're being valued for you, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it felt, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, it felt, I had to blank that one out, sorry, I accidentally swore, but it felt fantastic. I felt valued, and in fact, I ended up getting quite emotional yesterday because I couldn't hold it back in, and it came out at other points. But, you know, when you're surrounded by beautiful people, beautiful things happen. If you're surrounded by ugly people, ugly things happen, and it's just the way of the world, you know. I'm 44 now, and I wish I knew that when I was younger, but you just think, you know, you're young and you think you know it all. But yeah, so I felt truly blessed yesterday, and you know what, I have actually had a lot of support since making these videos, because this is a big thing for me. I'm putting my life out there on the line. I'm not going to be able to erase this. Once my story's out, it's out, you know. But I have the confidence now to move forward. So yeah, so I just want to say thank you to the people that do listen to all of our voices, to the people that do really want to hear our stories. I want to say thank you, because as much as we're probably helping you, I don't think you realise how much you're helping us. I've had already such a positive response from my vlogs, and it's quite overwhelming in a way, because none of it has been negative so far. I mean, I'm sure I'll get some trolls at some point, because that's what happens, doesn't it, when you put yourself out there on the line. But my experience so far has just been responses from beautiful people, you know, with beautiful hearts, Yeah, so I just want to say thank you. Sorry for going off topic again. Those who know me will get to know me and just laugh, because it's what I do. I just go off topic and I lose my trail of thought. Like I've said before, it's part of my MS as well. I just get memory block. But anyway, back to the story. Sorry again. So back to the story. So we were living in this house. We had the lodger. We had another Portuguese friend, and I know he won't mind me saying his name actually, which was George. He was a lovely guy. Because of my, I'm smiling because I shouldn't be smiling, but I remember it. I remember it so vividly, and it's not something to laugh about, because it ties into my promiscuous behaviours, and I don't find the behaviours that I held back then as being, you know, something that I feel proud of. But that's the surrounding that I was in, you know. I grew up in a really bad, negative surrounding. So going out into the world, it was just like, whoa, you know, I'm out there now. This is down to me, you know, nothing bad's going to happen to me again. Yet I ended up being the cause of the bad because of my promiscuous behaviours. And this guy George Fernando, he used to lodge above a computer shop that we ran that was owned by the family, and we became friends over years. And I had this crush on him. I don't know how far of a crush it was, because I certainly wasn't, you know, prepared to give up my marriage and the rest of it. Well, I wasn't married at that point, but, you know, I wasn't willing to give it up, and I wasn't unfaithful, but my promiscuous behaviour was always that flirty, like, I know that I can, or I'm pretty sure that I could get you if I wanted you, so I'm just going to flirt around you and, you know, get off on it, I suppose. And that sounds awful, but it's that false validation, you know, somebody telling me I'm attractive. I'm in a foreign world, exploring foreign feelings, you know, and no, this is the UK, but to me as a young adult it was a foreign world. So when somebody paid me attention, because it's the kind of attention that I was used to some respects, you know, it felt comfortable. It felt comfortable, and it's what I used to validate me, to make me feel like I was attractive and I was, you know, wanted and I was valued. But of course, it's all, you know, I really want to swear, but it's all B. I mean, God, I wish I could go back to my youth and do it all again. And I know so many people say that, but it's my behaviours, and this is the point that I'm trying to put across through my whole story, regardless of who I bring into it. It's the behaviours, and my behaviours were off key. They were really, really off key, you know, the things that I was doing, the sexual promiscuity, the drinking so much alcohol, and, you know, it was all a way to cover and hide these feelings and make me feel better about myself. And it never worked. Of course it didn't work. When you're trying to use negative things to get a positive, you clash. It doesn't work. If you keep doing the same things, you know, and you expect different results, it doesn't work. As the old saying goes, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And that is so true. Unfortunately for me, those behaviours of mine continued for quite some time. In fact, they continued all the way through my first marriage, really up until the point before we started trying for a baby. I wasn't the only one that was promiscuous in the relationship, obviously, because what man stands around for that all the time, you know. He had his moments as well, so, you know, it's just it's just the way we were young and dumb. But yeah, we had this house. I like to get the family round. I mean, obviously I had two brothers. My eldest brother we used to spend a lot of time with. Unfortunately, he's passed away now. Peter, he passed away at the age of 36. Left 3 children behind. He had undiagnosed MS, whereas I've got diagnosed MS. I am one of 3 siblings that has this disease. And that's why sometimes I act a bit strange in my videos, because I have all sorts of symptoms. A lot of them are I just stop dead in my tracks and I forget what I'm thinking about. I can pick my phone up to look at it, and in that split second I've forgotten what I've picked it up for. I forget names. Sometimes I twitch and I do strange things with my body. I have to touch myself, you know. So I do apologise in advance, but I have MS. I have a brain tumour. I have CPTSD. I have a emotionally unstable personality disorder. I have non-epileptic seizures. I'm a type 2 diabetic. There's so many health issues that I have that most people my age don't have. And for whatever reason caused my illnesses, because I'm sure some people are thinking to themselves, I know where this is going, but I'm not going there right now. But it absolutely does lead back to my childhood. You know, that trauma that I suffered as a child. And I so wish I could go into more detail, but believe me, when my story comes out, you know, you'll be glad that you heard the milder version first, because it's far more palatable, if you like, for when the horrors actually come out. It's you know, it's going to be a whole different ball game. And I think then when that time happens, you'll look back on these videos and you'll get to look at me, and you'll probably and hopefully just think, wow, how is this lady still standing here, you know? But I absolutely am, and my head is held high, and nobody is going to bring me down ever again. The day I made my decision to tell my story to the police was the day I decided that never ever again will I allow anybody to hurt me. And when you take that stand, you can get some peace in your life. You really, really can. So yeah, so all of the places that I lived in my first marriage were party houses, but you know, a bit more of like sophisticated party houses. And when I say sophisticated, I don't mean that our parties were better than everybody else's. I mean that it was sophisticated in the sense that we kept our mess inside our vicinity, you know, instead of you hearing it all sprawling out onto the streets. And that's not to say that it never sprawled out on the streets, because sometimes it did. That's life, you know. It does get spread out there, and then people just look at you and they judge you, and because they don't know your background and your history, they're judging you on face value for where you are. And where I was, you know, I didn't look like a poor victim who'd been abused all her life, you know, and all this, that and the other. I looked like a drunken idiot, being a drunken idiot, causing a load of noise, having my music too loud, and doing the things that I, you know, shouldn't be doing. And you're judged on face value. And at that time, those people who judged me, they were right. I was a nutter. I was a lovable nutter, not vicious and nasty and all the other rest of it, you know. I mean, man, I could kick off. I mean, believe me, I could kick off. I was tough. I was really tough back then. And I suppose that stems from survival as well. And I know that we've really gone off track today. But I think actually what was meant to come out has come out. And that's what my message is meant to be for today. But, you know, it was just, yeah, it's not good. And I'd love to say that, you know, things changed when the kids started to come along. But because we kept it within the house and it was sensible, like functioning idiots, you know, because we were idiots, you know, like you get functioning adults, we were functioning idiots. We managed to do the things we needed to do, but we made sure we had fun in the process. And sometimes, you know, that went a little bit over, not you know, not in bad ways, but just stupid late teenage, early 20 parties, as you know, as that's what you did. You didn't know what else to do back then. I mean, you obviously, you'd got your jobs. I mean, employment was completely different back then. You could just walk into somewhere and get a job, especially where in the industry that I worked in, which was sales, because, you know, you didn't have to do the CV and all the rest of it. You went in, you did your sales pitch because you had to sell yourself. It was done in like 20-30 minutes, and within the next hour you sat behind the desk and you're working. So, you know, there was lots of jobs out there, even like today. And I know this is going to ruffle feathers, but do you know what? You know, it's going to ruffle feathers, and that's just the way it is. But I've got 3 teenage boys. Well, my youngest is 19 and my eldest is 24, and you know, some of them say, oh, you just can't get a job, there just isn't any jobs out there. Rubbish. I'm not buying that. I was young once. Jobs are out there. You've just got to put yourself forward. I mean, my nipper, who's 24, he's been a chef for the last 7 years, and it's the kind of industry in the sense to what I was used to, like old school. You don't, well, some places you do, you fill in the job application, you tick that you've done chefing college, so therefore you're more qualified than somebody who's been out there chefing for 20 years. So you get the job. I mean, it's really messed up now. I mean, experience used to be the key thing. You know, if you've got the experience, you can prove that you can do the job right. But now it's all about college, GCSEs, and if you don't have the right ones, you're not going nowhere in life. And that's harsh and it's unfair. But I could walk into any sales place back then. You know, if you know how to do sales, you just do it with your mouth, and there you are. You know, you've got a job and you're off and running and you're doing what you're doing. But yeah, I did actually work all the way up to getting to the point of starting to have a family. I mean, I worked all the time, and you know, I enjoyed work. I was being around people, surrounded by people. Some people that I could talk to, some people that I couldn't talk to. Obviously, we had the not so nice girl when I was working at Sigma Computers. But yeah, I worked most of my adult life. I'm not quite sure how I managed it though, because I remember being at work on so many occasions, and I would have a complete mental breakdown. And I think now, probably looking at back at it, because I've got the emotional stress personality disorder. There was definitely signs of that back then, because I could never regulate my emotions. I went straight to, you know, crisis point within seconds. Gosh, I must have, you know, I must have really put my ex-husband through some tough times. In fact, I know I did. And if my face looks like it's smiling, please understand that I'm not laughing in serious situations. It's just me listening to myself and getting that realisation that, you know, actually, he was a bit of a bugger, you know. And I just hear it in my voice, and it makes me chuckle because I'm relating to it. Like now, I can pick up straight away on the behaviours, whereas if you'd have said to me 20 years ago, you're behaving like a complete because you're doing this, you know, I would have just been like, oh, shut up. But no, I can see it now. And when I used to get emotional, I used to just like that, and I'd be on the floor, you know. I'd either be sobbing my heart out, or I'd be quite aggressive to my ex-husband. We used to have some blinding rows. I mean, oh my God, when I rowed with that man, it ended up that we had tomato sauce on the ceiling, and you know, it just, I just went to points of desperation. I remember very vividly, sort of I'm jumping the gun quite a bit now, but I remember quite a few times in my first relationship, my head was so messed up that I didn't know how to portray myself in the right ways. But I remember having arguments with my ex-husband, and this isn't, I'm not saying this to cover the arguments. The point I'm trying to make is that I would, fight or flight, kick him out of the house, want him gone out of my life, never want to speak to him again. But obviously that then meant that I'd be on my own. I'd be vulnerable. There'd be nobody there to look out for me. Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to do in this house? So I would scream and shout at him, and I'd tell him, you get out that door, don't you turn around, you're not welcome anymore. Boop. But I would, and the whole time I'm screaming at him to get out, I'm stood by the front door, so he can't actually get out. So I'm saying to him, you're a C-U-N-T, you're a this, you're a that, you're the other, get out of my house, but I'm stood in the way of the door. I mean, all the signs were there, but nobody ever picked up, Had my mental health and issues at that stage have been picked up, my life could have been very different. However, and again, this is controversial, but I do truly, hand on my heart, believe that everything in life happens for a reason. And you're probably thinking, well, how can she say that? She's been abused all of her life. Well, I can say that because no matter what's happened in my life, I've always been protected by some kind of external force. I've been very, very lucky. There's times where I could have or should have been seriously hurt or dead, and I've pulled through, and I do not know how I pulled through. Somebody has been watching over me. They must have done. It's the only explanation. But I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and out of this so far, I've got my 3 amazing boys. I'm going to play this back to myself later so I can hear how I've said they're amazing boys, because they are amazing boys, but they're my boys, and they're still little buggers, of course they are, but I love them, and they've got good hearts, and that's, I'm a mum, what can I say? Sun shines out of the backside. No, it doesn't, and they'd get a good old they slept out of line. I'd have to run fast because they're older now. But yeah, and I'm here now, and I'm doing this, and although I'm in the very early stages of setting up Daughters of Justice UK, already I've had such an amazing response. I'm networking with a chap in South Africa who's fighting the same cause as me, or as us, should I say. However, they're facing a lot more different scenarios added on top. It's not just about, trying to vouch and mentor the younger people, the younger children that are being hurt out there. They're having to deal with all the other stuff like the poverty and, destroyed buildings and things like that. And I was so taken back to see a man that was being the voice for these younger children. And I don't mean that in a sexist way, but generally, normally, you always associate it with females, don't you? And this is all part of labelling, if you like, because it's not just all females, this chap that I've been speaking to, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're in trouble, then he's going to do his best to try and help you. But yeah, I was just taken back by this man. I'm not sure if he's a missionary or not, but anyway, he's doing amazing work out there in South Africa, in Gambia. So I'm sure you can imagine the struggles that they face. But I was just so taken back by the passion and the commitment. He runs his own Facebook group. That's how we kind of come across each other. I commented on one of his posts. So yeah, I was just taken back by the effort and of what this chap puts into, Dowder his name is, the effort he puts into trying to save children. you know, and it's just by being a missionary. And when I say just by being a missionary, I don't really want to get involved in the topic because I don't want to get drawn into controversy. But, you know, this guy doesn't get paid for what he's doing. I mean, I don't get paid for what I'm doing, and that makes it beautiful to me, because that makes it unique and innocent and pure. But yeah, I've come across so many amazing people that are out there fighting the cause, and I didn't really want to make this video about that, but I guess I've kind of drawn to the end anyway, really, because I've taken up enough of your time. But I'm overwhelmed by the amount of groups on Facebook. I mean, obviously you've got Rape Crisis, NSPCC, you've got all of those agencies that do amazing work worldwide, but you can only get a hold of those at certain times, you know, or you know, they do have 24-hour chat lines. I'm sorry, that sounded wrong, but what I mean is sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating knowing it's such a big organisation like Rape Crisis, for example, that do an amazing job, but because they're such a big company that it may feel intimidating to approach them, and you never should feel intimidated, and it's easier said than done, I know, but if you ever feel like you don't want to reach out to somebody bigger because you're not sure if you're ready to take that step, and it seems so daunting and terrifying and scary, because it is, even for a 44-year-old, it was terrifying, scary and daunting. But, you know, if you don't feel you're ready to take that step, then reach out to one of the support groups on Facebook. I mean, you do have to be a little bit careful. There's, you know, there's a lot of people that have set up groups because they want to fight for justice, which is so admirable. And without groups like that, you know, there'd be some people that hadn't been saved. But you do need to be careful of the people that you're in with those groups. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're in groups where, you know, they have certain rules before you can enter, like having your profile for a certain amount of time, having a profile picture, because what you've got to remember is, and the point I'm trying to make is, that online is still, although it's not new, it is still very relatively new to our children. And, you know, because it wasn't about like it is today when we were younger, you know, they get in there everywhere. You've got the online grooming, you know, you've got the paedophiles that are chatting up potentially young girls in these chat rooms. Thankfully, the majority of them are decoys, you know, but what if they weren't? You know, what if they weren't decoys? What if they were an innocent young girl? So I take my hat off to teams like London Overwatch. They're amazing, and a lot of these teams, you know, they're not always favoured by the police per se, which I need to understand a little bit more about that before I can make any kind of comment. I guess maybe it's because, or from what I've heard through communications with the police, is that sometimes it can interfere with stings that are already set up. You know, these certain people might already be being monitored, but the police are waiting for something really tangible to get an arrest because they need it. They don't make a decision. The police don't make the decision whether or not somebody gets prosecuted. You know, it's down to the CPS at the end of the day, and whether there's enough evidence or not. But, you know, yeah, but back to the point. So just to wind it up, what I'm trying to say is, if there's any young girls out there listening, anybody, not just young girls, women the same age as me, older than me, anybody out there that hasn't yet, you know, come forward with their story, but they want to, if you want to, then, you know, there, like I said, there's the contact lines, the NSPCC, Child Line, Women Against Abuse. You've got Women's Aid, Samaritans, Crisis Line. There's so many different agencies that you can contact. But if you feel you're not ready for that and you just want to speak to somebody, then maybe jumping onto one of those Facebook groups might be a starting point for you. I would really, really, really suggest that you don't go into too much detail about your personal life, because in a group like that, you are vulnerable. You do not know who else is in that group. You know, you don't know if people in there are the right sort of people to be talking to about that stuff, because things get twisted, thrown out of proportion, you know, derogatory questioning. I've come across it a couple of times, but my best advice will be, you know, just reach out and speak to somebody. You can always contact Daughters of Justice UK. You can send us an email at daughtersofjusticeuk@gmail.com. We are in the process of getting a posh email address, but everything takes time. It all costs money, and obviously at the moment we're unfunded, so it's being funded by myself. So I know I have to draw the line as to how much, you know, I have and I can spend. But yeah, or jump online to Facebook and find Daughters of Justice UK. You don't need to come out and tell your whole story. I mean, at the moment we've got a couple of groups that are about to run on Monday. This Monday we've got a gratitude group. So, you know, you're welcome to come along to that. There is questions to get into the group, because it's a private group, because I want to protect your anonymity. And it's just a simple group. Basically what we do is we all take it upon ourselves, although we do hold each other accountable, because that's important. You know, you can't have fun with a little bit of slack, without a little bit of slack. But we just write 5 things every morning that we're grateful for and send them to each other, so that we're accountable, so that each morning everybody starts with a little bit of positivity. You know, I get to open my inbox and see all the things that other people are grateful for, you know, and then I can think to myself, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. I mean, obviously we can all say we're grateful for the lungs, you know, for the air in our lungs. Oh my God, I'm so backwards and coming forwards. You know, I'm so grateful for the food in my belly. I'm so grateful for the roof over my head. And they are basic things to be grateful for, because there is a lot of people out there, as you know, that don't have a roof over their head. They don't know where the next, you know, meal's coming from, especially not in the crisis that we're in today. But yeah, you know, just reach out to somebody. Yeah, Daughters of Justice UK@gmail.com. Pop onto our Facebook page. You can find us across Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. We're on every platform. We try to share equally the information between the 5 platforms. We specifically do that, so it might look repetitive if you go from one platform to the other, but it's specific for people that haven't thought of trying the other platform. So that's why we try to spread all the information across every platform. But our main page where we do what we do is on Facebook, Daughters of Justice UK. We have two separate groups. You've got the Daughters of Justice UK support group. That's a private group where you can go into that group, be around like-minded women that are all different stages of their recovery, and that's where you can pour your heart out, and you know, and get some feedback on where you are by people who know what you've been through. It's in a separate group, because obviously our main page, for me especially anyway, you can probably tell I'm quite a bubbly person. For me, it's quite important for the main page to be quite positive, because it's very easy to get stuck in that hard done by kind of way of thinking, like on your pity pot, which I've done for many years, and that's why I'm saying it. I'm not saying it in a derogative way like your pity pot. It's so easily done and so hard to get out of. You've got to be positive. Self-care, self-love, that's where you start from. You can try to do all these different programs, the 12-step program, which is amazing, and we're going to be practicing at some point in the SARS Anonymous UK group, which is a fellowship for both men and women. But there will be separate women's meetings and there will be separate men's meetings. That's going to end up hopefully being a worldwide thing, but it works on the principle of Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. If you've ever been to one of those meetings, which you know I have, which I'll explain further on in the videos, but it runs on that principle basically, and it's just about, you know, people sharing their stories, finding the similarities, you know, trying to relate to what's going on, and just giving general feedback. So it's all going to kind of pretty much be the same setup, but obviously we are not associated or affiliated with those groups in any way. This is our own group, so that's something new that's coming as well. We've got the podcast coming very soon. I've already got a couple of speakers lined up for that. We've just got to get the green screen, the microphones, and get it all up and running. But again, you know, everything costs money. So yeah, I think I'm just waffling on now because I don't know what else to say. I hope I've covered some stuff today that you find valuable. Don't forget to like and subscribe, just down there, press down there, and if you want to leave a message, I will get back to you, but yeah, like and share. You don't know who needs to hear my message today. I'm sure there's somebody out there that needs to hear it, so I can only get my message across if you guys support me and you put the word out there. Until next time, one love, God bless, and stay safe. Thank you.
I'm aware of the bonds that were created today. When you told me that sure there's a way